Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. It's a beautiful morning outside. I just got back from my sojourn around the world, and I'm having quite a bit of fun. We went to Wyoming, we went to Boston, we went to Scotland, went to Bulgaria, Prague, and Vancouver, all in a very short period of time. A ton of business from hackathons to meetings at Harvard and MIT to a lot of stuff about the incentives for the Incentivized testnet, the 2-year anniversary of Cardano. Got to hang out in Prague and see the community there. And then finally, good old Vancouver, where I attended the ETC Summit, which is an annual event. I figured now that I'm back here in Colorado, and actually literally just got back, and internet at home is gone. So I said, come here to the office and a nice Sunday, and let's have an AMA because we love you guys. Okay, first things first, there's been a FUD-nado, a FUD storm, crazy amount of FUD floating around about Cardano, delays, the project is not being well led. Of course, the expected requisite hit piece videos have recently come out, dredging up fake news. And, people who do that, good for them, never accomplish anything, and they're not real people. So the reality is the project is in very, very good shape. We're moving fast. Shelley is shipping this year. The Incentivized testnet is the very first version of it. You see, to reiterate this, because the crypto press seems to have missed it, you have two options when you decentralize a system. Option A is just to immediately decentralize it, throw everybody to the wolves, and hope to God they figure it out and everything works. Or option B is you create a sandbox that gradually decentralizes, and then that somehow has an impact on the main network. So we chose the latter because it just simply makes more sense. If we got something wrong, if there's stuff we want to change, we can do that rapidly and quickly without requiring coordinating a hard fork. And also is egalitarian because this is new technology to you guys, not to us. We built it, our partners built it. So we know a lot about it, but the general public does not. So there needs to be a sandbox that gives people an opportunity to learn how to configure things, set up stake pools, start building their business model, build their brand, convince people to delegate to them, to understand how these dashboards work, to give us advice and suggestions about things that they would want to see. And again, it makes a lot of sense to do that in a controlled environment where we can rapidly change things, especially once we start fixing system level parameters. To make it a testnet with high participation, you basically allow people to stake, and the stake rewards are real rewards, so they carry over to the main network. So again, we will be releasing a blog post in the middle part of October, specifically about how that snapshot is going to work, how the Incentivized testnet is going to work, what the software is going to look like, and how you can participate. We're already getting overwhelming participation with the networked testnet, which is another thing that was just apparently totally missed by the FUD media. And we have almost 100 stake pools running on that. We have tons of issues that have been reported, lots of cool back and forths and conversations. We're learning a lot. The community's learning a lot. There's 2,400 people in the stake pool channel, and we've cut, since we've released it, probably more than 5 or 6 releases in 10 days. And we're planning on cutting another release probably on Monday, and maybe another release throughout the week. So we're rapidly updating the software, rapidly fixing bugs, learning a lot along the way. So Cardano's looking good. The Haskell side is also looking good. It's ridiculously difficult to build this type of stuff. So of course they're taking their time, but releases are coming down that pipeline as well. But we are fortunate to have both the Rust and the Haskell side, and we're fortunate to learn from both. So the project is going well. We're not missing deadlines. We know what we're doing, and you can publicly see that on the GitHub. There's more commits with our project than any other cryptocurrency project on market. The credentials, qualifications of our engineers are clear, and it's clear to see the quality of the software, as evidenced by the fact that 13-year-old children in Wyoming were able to get stake nodes running on Raspberry Pis. So I guess if these YouTubers and other people are saying that there's nothing there, they're not as smart as 13-year-old kids from Wyoming, although those kids in Wyoming are pretty happy. Another thing is, and this is from Jonathan Fernandez, confused why Charles got fired so many times. I have not been. I took a buyout with BitShares because I couldn't work with Dan. As for Ethereum, that story is very clear. It was either for profit, not for profit. They decided to go not for profit. And 7 of the 8 founders are no longer there at Ethereum. Only one is, Vitalik. The rest all went off and did what I did and created their own company. And for example, Consensus, Decentral, Parity, which is no longer even really working on Ethereum much. So some of these companies are competing with the very project. My entire argument is if we didn't put golden handcuffs on people, they wouldn't stick around. And we didn't. So I was right. You see, people like to rewrite history and people like to just say things, but I'd like to remind everybody, I've been working on Cardano since 2015. I've put years and years of my life here. Every single day showed up for my job and did my job. We now have 200 people at IOHK, 100 of which are working every day on Cardano, and they work very, very hard every day, publicly, transparently. The work is there. But I guess some people would just like to pay attention to fake news. They'd like to pay attention to the latest sycophant or provocateur of the week. And they don't seem to understand that these are among the most complicated of protocols to implement, and they're based upon peer-reviewed research, meaning they didn't exist prior to our company inventing them. There is no code we can copy. There is no source base to fork from. And we're doing very hard things. And when you do very hard things based upon science and it's new, occasionally you have issues. If you don't believe that, take a look at the Apollo program. Look at the pictures of the astronauts who burnt to death in the capsule. Look at the moon rover and the moon lander just literally months before the Apollo mission actually launched, and how much difficulty they had controlling it. They spent 10 years and 1 million people on that project. These projects are of the same scale. They involve millions, if not billions of users. They involve millions of different devices. They involve very complex protocols that have to be designed up front to be resistant against the smartest hackers and attackers in the world who have every financial incentive to break things. And you can look no further than to EOS, to Tezos, to any other project that's had some issue somewhere to say that if you don't do things right, I don't suffer the consequences. The users of the system suffer the consequences. The holders of the tokens suffer the consequences, namely you. So it's important that things be done in a systematic process. It's important that things be done safely. And this doesn't mean that people are incompetent. It doesn't mean that people are prepared to abandon the project. These markets have brought out, frankly, the worst in people. And they've made people say, do things and comment on things in ways that are so counterproductive. You know, I'm happy to collaborate. I'm happy to discuss the science. I'm happy to discuss the accomplishments that we have had and we brought to market. And I'm happy to discuss our vision for the future and how we're going to roll Cardano out. But what I'm not happy to do is to sit every single day and watch people time and again make videos personally attacking our project, the integrity of the project, our ethics, our beliefs, our values, and the accomplishments. It's insulting, if not to me, then to the 200 people that work at IOHK, who every day wake up and just want to do a good job and believe in a decentralized future. So for the sake of the space, you know, we all have to take a step back and ask ourselves, why are we here? What are we doing? And what's the point of all of this? If it's just to get rich, believe me, there's significantly easier ways to do that that are a lot less stressful. If it's to change the world, it's to actually give billions of people things that they don't have, that once they have them, it lifts them up out of poverty and makes their lives better. Well, that's something. That's a meaningful pursuit. And it's a long road that will take decades to achieve. So the project is swimming along. We're doing great work. I'm very proud of the great participation we're getting. I'm proud of this community. I'm proud of the progress that's been made. I'm proud of seeing 13-year-old kids running nodes. I'm proud that we're able to actually have a two-way conversation about product features, and we're able to get rapid releases and iterations. I'm proud to see the fact that we submitted 18 papers in the month of October and September to various academic conferences. Our research flow is speeding up, not slowing down. I'm proud that we've solved major problems in computer science that previously were open questions if they could even be resolved. And I'm proud most that we're still here, despite all the hits, the ups and downs, the issues. We're still here. We're still strong. And we're still going to show up for work every single day. So screw the haters. Love all the lovers, and let's get to your questions. And yes, the moon lander happened. The moon landing did happen. Charles is going into Clint Eastwood from Unforgiven when he drank whiskey. Yeah, there we go. Killed my friend. All right, guys, give me a good question. And yes, Parity is definitely focusing on Polkadot. They're kind of scaling things down. Charles, you're leaving the Cardano Foundation, right? Never been part of it. We have a representative on the Cardano Foundation, but we're just there to help rebuild the foundation, get it back where it's going. And let me be very clear. My intention with the Cardano Foundation has always been the same. Nothing has changed. There will be an interim board. That's what Nathan Kaiser, Domino, and Menmeet are. They're interim people. They're not there forever. And their point is to hire new board members, 7 of them, an executive director, and get the finances, the reputation, brand, and the structure of the foundation in good shape. And then it becomes a solely independent entity again. So, we were hoping for faster progress, but Switzerland moves very slow, and there was a lot of damage and things to clean up. But we don't exert control. We don't have control over the books or the finances. And the foundation right now in its current state is in a recruitment mode, and it's looking to hire more board members, and it's looking to gradually turn itself into an execution unit for the ecosystem. And we will start at the IWHK side, putting tremendous organizational pressure on the foundation to begin that board diversification. Second, we're going to start putting tremendous pressure to begin working with us on the Cardano improvement proposal process and working with us on Voltaire to ensure that by the end of 2020, the proper democratic elements are installed, the proper voting mechanics are installed, and there's a clear governance model for the entire ecosystem. This is one of the core mandates of the foundation, and I have a strong expectation that it will get done. And if I believe it's going to get done, it's going to get done. Cardano is losing Charles like Apple's losing Steve Jobs. I hear this rumor too. Charles is retiring. Charles is leaving. He's going away. I'm not going anywhere. I love this job. I love cryptocurrencies. I love blockchain. We're just getting to the good parts. For years and years and years and years, all we were doing is talking about a future. If only we get together, and if we only work together, we will get this great, beautiful future. And now we finally have a situation where we actually have the technology, and we actually have the market credibility and the resources necessary to be able to execute on the things we've been talking about since 2009 as an ecosystem. Why leave when you actually have a chance to see these things get executed? But people conflate my statements about the need for decentralization and balance of power and checks and balances with this concept that, well, that must mean I'm retiring or leaving. No, if this ecosystem is to work, we cannot have cults of personality. We have to have process over people, and no one entity can be so vital that if you remove that entity, the ecosystem dies or is greatly compromised. Because everyone can be corrupted. Everyone has financial incentives that don't necessarily align with the incentives of the ecosystem, and everyone can be in some way compromised, regardless of their integrity, or killed if they can't be compromised. So the only way we're going to get there to a decentralized future where things like social credit don't bother us is if we decentralize the ecosystem. And the only way we're going to do that is by reminding everybody that it's a two-way relationship. I can build every type of tool, any type of voting system. I can build any type of incentives model. I can build any type of process. But if the community doesn't follow them, doesn't use them, stays ignorant to them, well, then we're at ground zero. Because at the end of the day, no decision will be made unless I make it or someone else makes it. So this is my point, and this is why we as a project are so focused on reminding everyone. We think it's vitally important, frankly, the single most important characteristic of cryptocurrency. Everything else, it's easy to get there. It may take 5 years or 10 years and lots of engineering and some science, but there's an inevitability to scaling, there's an inevitability to interoperability, an inevitability towards better transactions that are smarter and better smart contract programming languages, just like your phone is going to get better. In 10 years from now, when you pick up that iPhone or that Samsung Galaxy, it will be an order of magnitude better as a device than the device I have today and you have today. And we all know that. The markets are aligned to produce something like that. But there's no guarantee that, for example, the American election system will be higher quality. There's no guarantee, for example, that the European Union will be more stable and harmonious and more democratic. There's no guarantee that somehow China will embrace freedom. In fact, it's probably the opposite. So we have to proactively remind ourselves that these are not problems that will solve themselves or inevitably just get where they need to go. Each of us has to work towards decentralization, and each of us has to understand what that means and be an active participant in the revolution. Are you wearing New Balance boots right now? I don't know if New Balance makes boots, but I'm sure as hell going to buy some New Balance shoes. October 14th, they're going to announce what we're doing. It's pretty cool. It does use Cardano, and I'm really excited. It's not an Atala project. It's a Cardano project. They specifically requested Cardano. And we said, wow, that's super cool. So we had to do some things and play around for a bit, and we managed to get some things working. So I wait for that announcement middle part of the month. I think you guys are going to be really excited. Anti-counterfeiting is a humongous market. It's a $1.13 trillion marketplace, and blockchains and cryptocurrencies are actually perfect devices to not only solve that problem, but also introduce really cool new business models. For example, the concept of good secondary markets for luxury goods. For example, when you go to eBay and you see a Gucci purse, you kind of built into the price is your suspicion of whether it's real or not. If it's easy to authenticate it, it's always better for the seller. You can also have discussions about residual royalties, where you can create marketplaces that have these wonderful things like Gucci purses and Louis Vuitton. But when it's sold a second time on the secondary market, then Gucci would still get a royalty, or Louis Vuitton would still get a royalty in exchange for providing some additional services like authentication. So it's a really exciting concept for luxury brands. They lose a lot of money to this, and it damages their brand and consumer experiences. So we're super excited to be working with New Balance in that respect, to think about these things. Let's see here. The difference between Casper and Ouroboros is the finality? No, it's not just finality. We solved all the problems. We have a decoupled clock. We can bootstrap from Genesis. We have 50% Byzantine resistance. We operate in a semi-synchronous model. It's a very different protocol, and the science is clear. Theirs isn't, and we wish him well. Greetings from Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan. Well, welcome, soldier. Yeah, coalition guy, or your PMC? Can you specify what will happen when the IOHK contract ends in 2020? We will keep going till the scope of work is done. And then after the scope of work is done, we'll ask community for a new contract. And then instead of working for a single entity, we work for you guys. And it's up to you to decide whether we stay or go. Pretty simple, huh? Airman, all right. Charles Wen Shoe, gonna eat it in November. I'll have a nice shoe cake just for you guys when we launch the Incentivized testnet. Love you too, Dimitar. Charles, when did you decide for yourself that building a revolutionary financial system should be your life goal? You know, it was a complete accident that I got into this field. I never expected to. You know, I did a free course. People loved the course. I did a TED Talk. And, you know, these kinds of things gave me opportunities to actually go and pursue something. But now I'm glad in hindsight that I've had the experience of being in this field. It's been profitable, but it's been meaningful. It's been meaningful in that I've been able to go to 52 countries. I've been able to meet heads of state. I've been able to actually see the world, and I've been able to talk to everyone about their problems, about their dreams, their hopes, and to get a kind of a global empathy and get a sense of where the world is going. Yuval Harari is a great historian, and he's also a great author, and he writes these wonderful books about where we came from and also where he thinks we're going. And the crux of the books is that we are constrained by narratives. Religions are constructions of narratives. Governments are constructions of narratives. You see, these things don't actually exist. There's no actual place for a corporation. It's on paper, but where exactly does Microsoft live? Is there like a cabinet you can open and you find Microsoft? You say, this is Microsoft. And you grab it, you can physically touch it. No, it's an abstraction. It's a concept. It's a way we can collectively coordinate. We choose to believe that lie in exchange for the emergent benefits it provides. And the reality is that as technology changes and the focus of society changes, then we need different fictions for us to get to the next level. For example, we used to be really worried as a species about war, famine, and disease. So everything was constructed to mitigate these things and protect us from them. But these days, not many people starve to death compared to all 7 billion. These days, not many people die from large wars. These days, not many people have to deal with massive plagues like the Black Death, for example, which wiped out a third of the European continent. That said, there's still tremendous problems in the world, from malaria to Ebola. There sure hell is still starvation and war, but they tend to be more localized. In fact, if you read Enlightenment Now from Steven Pinker, he makes this case that the world is becoming a better place. And he exhaustively does it with a data-driven approach and shows that over the last 100 years, from 1900 to 2000, how this is really the best time ever to be alive. But the problem is that now that we've globalized, we have instantaneous access to information, we live in a situation where the fictions that guided the world for a long time no longer are relevant. And it's creating social friction, which is why we see things like Brexit and Trump. It's why we see the conflicts with China and the Hong Kong issue. It's why the world seems a little bit more shaky and fragmented. So we're due for fictional changes, and new narratives will come. And really, blockchain is a storytelling device. It comes with it a philosophy about property, about identity, about how your money should work, the level of autonomy you have, the global nature of assets, what's transparent, what's not. It comes with a concept of decentralized control. So this is not just about money. It's not just about token. Ultimately, it's about storytelling. It's telling a new story, one that would give us a collection of tools that, if we adopt them, will allow us to take over, to manage the processes, the problems of globalization. And also, it gives a natural place for us to start putting artificial intelligence into the system to help us create mirrors to protect us from ourselves. Human beings are remarkably good at confirmation bias, self-delusion, and remarkably good at lying to ourselves, no matter how good you are, how smart you are. To be working with technology that is like what Campbell used to say about computers, they're like Old Testament gods, lots of rules and no mercy. To be working with systems that effectively don't care about you, they have no empathy for you. The rules are the rules, and they're immutable, and they can't be changed. These are things humans aren't used to, us kind of like a social law of physics. So I never imagined I'd be in a space like this or to do something as relevant as this and magical as this. But in hindsight, it has been so tremendously rewarding and just so tremendously challenging. And I truly do enjoy it. Those are the best of days. The worst of days, of course, come when you deal with the politics of personal destruction, and there's just people wake up every day and all they want to do is hurt you. Or in some cases, just because they want to hurt you for the sake of hurting you. Or they think because they disagree with you, you're a monster. But someone once sent me a picture of me on a Lamborghini tractor, and the caption was, "Suck it up, Buttercup." So if you want to go change the world, you got to suck it up and take the hits. Hello, Charles. Any news about the Haskell Cardano progress? I will have a testnet 2 as the Rust one. Yes, and that one will likely come in January. Haskell's a little behind the Rust in terms of getting things to market because they also have to bear the burdens of running the entire network as it is. But there will likely be one more major update to the Haskell code base prior to the end of the year. And then the Shelley era will begin for the Haskell side in early next year. And there'll be a Shelley testnet released on the Haskell side. And we'll probably do the same thing we did where we have a self-node testnet and a network testnet, but probably more accelerated. It is an open question of which code base will be most relevant to the user in the coming months. But we'll figure that out. And that'll come from a variety of decisions that are made based upon facts and circumstances. But they're working real hard. A lot of great progress has been seen. I told the network team to stop writing code and focus on documentation for a few weeks, and they ended up writing a 100-page document, which is certainly fun to read. But good things are, good things are moving there too. It's just it's very hard to write that type of code, but they've gotten much better at it, and we get demos all the time, and certainly we see a lot of progress. The Rust code is moving very fast, though. How has ADD progressed in Ethiopia? Anything done after to train young girls? Yes, we did train the girls, and we signed a pilot agreement with the Ministry of Innovation and Technology, and we're right now starting the pilot. So a feasibility study is going to be done, and then a pilot, and that pilot will include probably June of 2020. Based on that, we'll work with the government if it makes sense to set up a PPP and go ahead and create an RFP and build a coalition to actually construct a full currency for millions of people in Addis Ababa. And if that happens on the IWHK side, which we'd like it to, but the economics have to align, we will deploy that currency on Cardano, which will bring millions of users in the Cardano ecosystem. Every one of these deals does that. They're real. You see, Rusty Bike, you made millions, we got delays in a fake testnet. That's my point. The stupidity never ceases to amaze me. Rusty, what would you prefer? What would you like us to launch? You tell me. It's the chat. Go ahead. Come on, give us something good. Tell me how you'd run the project. Hoskinson, do you think Cardano with its Bryce team and formal methods approach can compete long-term with a project like EOS with near their infinite war chest worth billions? They don't have an infinite war chest. They have some billions of dollars. Great. Microsoft had billions of dollars. How'd that work out for them when they competed against Google? How'd that work out for them when they competed against Apple? How they doing in the smartphone market? How they doing in the social network market? How they doing in search? Not so well. Money doesn't magically make you win. If it did, all the monopolies of the old ages would still be in charge. You don't need money to win. You need people. You need philosophy. You need a good business strategy. You need a great way of executing. You need the right incentives for people to participate. I'll remind everybody that the largest cryptocurrency is the one that was still started by one guy on a laptop. That was Bitcoin, and no money was raised for that. Yet still it is the biggest actor and has the biggest presence. Second, Ethereum's ICO was smaller than the fine EOS paid to the Securities Exchange Commission. And Ethereum is still kicking EOS's ass. So money doesn't buy you success. All it is it just gives you more problems. And a treasury system overcomes all of this because you can literally do anything with a treasury. You could go ahead and make a decision, I'm going to ask the community to go raise $50 million for this. The community thinks about it and says, let's take that risk. Let's go down that road. You now have a mechanism to use the power of the printing press to build anything you want. Why does the US dollar matter? Well, we now can create our own money. And as long as we get social consensus, we can get it done. There's a great corporate example of this. Look at Tesla. They just print stock. They say, we need some money. Go create some stock. Here we go. And they go sell it, raise billions of dollars. Normal businesses don't do that. They go out of business. They're like, oh, God, model's not sustainable. And Musk said, I have this crazy idea about where I'd like to take the world in the future. I'm just going to go print some stock. And if the market wants it, we'll raise the money. We're good to go. And they did. And we can do the exact same with cryptocurrencies with a treasury model. So if we need 100 million, it'll show up. We need $1 billion, it'll show up. But what you can't replicate, what you can't print is integrity. And if you start from the beginning with no integrity and broken processes, and it's all about the money, and it's not really about actually achieving something, you can't fix that. That's why Bitcoin's still king, because that's all it had was the integrity. How is Ouroboros progressing? Very good. Genesis, you can use it right now, today. Download it, network testnet. Shut up, put up. It's running right now. You know, we invented it, took 4 years to create it. Now it's there. We're playing around with it. Kids are playing around with it. And very soon, rewards will start flowing. And very soon, it will be the status quo. Network will be running. And what the hell are y'all going to say in Q1 of 2020? It'll be something else. When Gogan. How can I learn Haskell? I've never coded before. Well, you just go ahead and read this lovely book that one of our secretaries got, Graham Hutton's Programming in Haskell. It's quite a good book, and this will teach you everything you need to know. If it's too hard, then read Learn You a Haskell for Great Good, or the Haskell book. See, yeah, 3 different sources. Good luck. How will Shelley change the world? I'll tell you very succinctly. We will have proven that you can run a global scale financial system that can support potentially millions of users and be 250 times more decentralized than Bitcoin, with mechanisms to make it more decentralized over time on about 10 kilowatts of power, the power of a large home. Feels pretty good to me. Carlindo, Haskell was my first programming language first year in college. Where did you go to university? There's not many that do that. Edinburgh does, but the American schools definitely don't. In retrospect, is there anything that you wish you had done differently? Oh my God, yeah. We made a boatload of mistakes on a lot of things. You know, we didn't take building a cryptocurrency, especially in the Byron era, as serious as we should have. You know, we said it's easy to construct a cryptocurrency. These new protocols that we're developing are a lot harder. So we overemphasized building the science division, and we overemphasized the formal methods approach. And we built out some great capabilities there, which have paid enormous dividends. We have more scientists and more paper volume than pretty much anyone in this space. There's no one you can point to that can outmatch us in that respect. But we didn't really have as strong of a product focus, and we didn't really have as strong of a development focus in the beginning as we needed to. And then we tried half measures to fix it, like putting strong project management on top. And it just didn't work the way that we had intended. You know, if we had to do everything all over again, when we launched the Byron era, we would have probably launched a command line client full node and built it probably in a different way than we built Byron, almost certainly in a different way. And we would have launched Icarus as the first major product. And then we'd have very tight control over the user experience. It would have been easy to drag in multi-sig, easy to drag in hardware wallet support. We'd be doing rapid updates every 6 weeks. That team was very cheap to maintain, and we just got a lot of value for it. And we'd have had a great user experience with all of the people in the Cardano ecosystem. There wouldn't have been connecting to network or all of these other things. And the exchanges would have just run this command line node, and we would have held off on Daedalus for a lot longer if we had to do it all over again. There also is an open question of the wisdom of doing the first generation of the product in Haskell. If we had to do it all over again, I probably would have done it in Scala or F#. F#'s a really interesting ecosystem because you have Xamarin and .NET and all these beautiful things there, and there's just really powerful applications that can be constructed. Scala, we've had a phenomenal development experience with, and we've really enjoyed building Scala applications. It's easy to predict when they're going to be done. They just work on Rails. Testing is quite straightforward, and you can still use a lot of the things in the formal methods community, and you can still use a lot of the things in the functional programming space. Like, for example, for as quick check, there's Scala check. There's a lot of things in that ecosystem that are quite nice, and there's plenty of Scala developers out there. So I had to do it all over again. We definitely do things differently, and we would have focused on a browser client to start with, and really had that light experience, and really made the user experience great. And we wouldn't have tried to innovate too much in the beginning, and then we would have iterated in a much more agile way. The problem when you build things based on research is it always has a waterfall-esque view. It's very difficult to get agility in research because you create the paper and then you have to kind of think about it and write a prototype, and then you discover a lot of things and you go back up the waterfall to revise the paper. Putting agile into paper development is very difficult because scientists just don't work that way, and they're used to much longer self-reflective timetables. They submit to the conference. There's a referee process. You go to the conference. Computer science is faster than mathematics or physics because they're conference-oriented, not journal-oriented. So instead of maybe being 1 or 2 years for feedback, you get it in 6 months. But 6 months for feedback is not acceptable for an entrepreneurial, product-driven culture. So to accelerate that a bit, you have to put in special processes, and it's something that we've had to learn along the way, and it's still not perfect. On the formal methods side, we probably would have a lighter touch vision. We do write LaTeX, we write reference Haskell code. We have done some things in Isabelle. Maybe more exploration of things like TLA plus, maybe not. It's hard to say if the approach didn't yield merit or not, because we have these great documents now, like the wallet backend, the wallet specification, and the ledger spec, and so forth. And these documents are easy to read, and they're quite powerful, and they give us a lingua franca to have a conversation with external firms about what we want to do and where we want to go. So maybe we'd have a slightly more coupled or tighter approach, or have perhaps a prototyping phase before you go directly into formal methods with a slightly separate team. It's an interesting question, and we're still tinkering and tooling, and we have some great people in the organization who are definitely thinking about these things every day and working about these things. We've proven we can be agile, like we did with Icarus. We built it in 4 months, and everything was built in a proof of concept way, and every month we had a demo. And within 2 months, it was taken and productized by Emergo and turned into their own ecosystem with Uroi. That's a testimony to the quality of that software and the vision there. If a third party can just simply take what you've done and instantly turn that into a product that they understand how to modify and can build a roadmap on. It's easy to do things for yourself. It's hard to do things for other people. So this is one of those things, after it's all said and done at the end of 2020, we're definitely going to have a nice retrospective over the 5 years in total of lessons learned, and we will write quite a comprehensive document on what we learned and what we did. That said, we are where we're at today, and you have to move forward, and we're rapidly releasing products. If you look at our releases, we're cutting releases on the wallet backend, we're cutting releases on Rust, in some cases multiple times a week. The Haskell code is certainly accelerating at a much faster pace than any Haskell developers usually do. And we're starting to see a real productization there. And we're starting to get a better product focus. I have some regrets about the relationship with the Cardano Foundation. It was just so unfortunate that Parsons did the things he did, and he lacked any desire to actually execute and have a vision and work with us. It was so hard to get them to do even basic things. And we spent months and months and months trying to be nice about it, taking the reins where we had to, but ultimately that did hurt the ecosystem. Had we been faster on certain things, especially with the release of Goguen and Shelley, it would have been nice to go out into the field and build applications. I see the often criticism, well, nothing's been deployed on Cardano. It's like, guys, I've met thousands of people in the last few years who want to build on our system. It's not going to be a problem finding dApp developers and getting people to build things on Cardano. It's just a bit annoying that we haven't gotten to a state where that can be done in a reasonable way yet. And I really want to, because that's the fun part of the ecosystem. Because you're no longer talking about, well, when will this particular protocol ship? You're talking about, well, ooh, how do we solve this problem? Ooh, that's cool. And you're just doing all this cool prototyping, and you get to see things being built. Like, I really loved going to ETH Denver It was multiple floors of just booth after booth after booth. And you get to talk one person after another person about, well, what are you building? What are you solving? 2 points I took away is that this is a really creative space. And second, no one really cares about the infrastructure they're deploying to. They're not loyal to Ethereum or EOS or anything else. They're here to solve problems. And if the infrastructure enables them to solve that and works with them to solve that, they'll stick on it. But if the infrastructure works against them, they will move on to something else. So it's a great question. Certainly had a lot of fun the last few years, but man, it's been hard. It's been very, very hard. And I wish I was able to spend more time with family. I missed a lot of things. I missed my grandfather and grandmother's death and the funeral. I miss anniversaries and birthdays and all kinds of things that I wish I hadn't have missed. And some people are no longer here to say goodbye to, and I just wasn't around for the last moments. So I guess you give up some of the good with the bad. I love this question. Who's IOHK's contract with building Cardano with? Can we see a copy of that contract? Absolutely not. The contract was negotiated with the entity that collected the funds to build Cardano, and it's a standard software development contract. It's got a nice scope of work. It has an estimated time to completion. But if there are overruns, they're my responsibility, not the responsibility of that entity. So we are just going to go do that. And we're just going to keep working until Voltaire is out, even if it makes me broke. Is a quantum computer a real problem / trouble for Cardano? Trees are doing great. Quantum computer is not a problem. Don't read the headlines. Follow the science. Can you talk about how Cardano proves identity in the network? How are external attestations handled? This is a great example of cross-pollination. So first you need a notion of, well, how are you going to treat identity in your system? And the best way of doing that is saying identity is an object. And in this case, the DID standard is probably where the entire industry is moving. So, okay, DID. So we have a decentralized identifier. It's, just basically a small, like 54-bit or 56-bit address. And then it points to something called a DID document, which is self-authenticating, and it contains lots of additional information. Okay, so that's the standard. But what that doesn't give you is trusted attestation. It doesn't give you web of trust. It doesn't give you aliasing. So you have to do a lot more. Batteries are not included with DID. DID is a standard to just kind of handle things, but you need something on top of DID to make DID useful. So we are building an identity product as a consequence of what we're doing for credential verification in Georgia. And it turns out that Atala-based identity product we're constructing is blockchain agnostic. So you can pull the blockchain out and you can put a different blockchain in. So it's probably going to be the case that we take those mechanics that we're constructing, which we'll announce later, and we put those mechanics on top of Daedalus or the Cardano platform. And maybe there will be a light touch to begin. So we're putting a message center into Daedalus as of 1.7. And the initial use case will be for us to push messages to people who have Daedalus. But then once we have DIDs in and we have pubs up into the protocol, you can subscribe to people. So for example, when you delegate to a stake pool can have a unique identifier and a subscription channel. And then when you stake, it'll automatically subscribe to the stake pool. So the stake pool can then push messages to your message center, such as we're increasing fees or retiring, or if it's a socially beneficial pool, here's our use of funds report or whatever they want to send. And of course, you can unsubscribe, right? It's an interface that you have. Well, if you have that system, then the next thing you can do with those very same mechanics is a friend system. So you can say, okay, well, this HD wallet and this DID belong to Bob. So I'm going to add Bob as a friend. And when he gets a pending friend request, what he can do is sign whatever identifier and send it back. And then you can create addresses on his behalf to send him money. And also it provides aliasing at that point. So instead of seeing an address, you see Bob. So it's your version of Bob. So you can have namespace collisions, but you've authenticated that Bob out of band. That's called web of trust. So that's one way of doing it, and it's the easiest way of doing things because it's totally decentralized. But then there is the need for centralized curation. And specifically, for example, how do you know IOHK is IOHK? Or how do you know Google is Google? So usually we introduce the idea of trusted third parties. And the easiest way of doing that is kind of importing something from the old certificate authority world into the system. And we'll probably have support for X.509 in some capacity. And then we could probably have a CA style system we can pull in. That it's not terrible if it's coupled with decentralized identifiers and web of trust. I think you can get around the downsides of that type of attestation. But it's going to be an interesting thing to discuss come 2020 and beyond. And to solve this problem, it's going to take many, many years of trial and error. And there are some good projects that are looking into it. I'd highly encourage you guys to look into Hyperledger Indy, and I highly encourage you guys to look into Sovereign. These are two examples of people who are really trying to take the identity problem seriously and have done some great open source work that you can use as a stepping stone. By the way, that's how you do multi-sig really well. If you have DIDs in your system and PubSub in your system, then it's easy to coordinate these things and do it without a trusted relay server. And that's really powerful. It also helps you with contingent settlement because you can embed a DID within an address. And then when you try to send a transaction to it, the first thing is a kind of an out-of-band negotiation. And then both parties have to agree for that to settle. So instead of just push transactions, you can have mutual transactions. And that's particularly useful for things like exchanges. For example, if you're a Binance customer, a Bittrex customer, you can have a whitelisting system where before you become a customer, you have to register a DID with the exchange. And then the DID will require you to sign or embed the DID somehow in your address that you're withdrawing from. Your DID credentials don't actually live in Binance or Bittrex, so your private keys aren't there. So if your account is compromised, an attacker can't loot your address. They can't take the money out because they won't be able to replicate the credentials for a withdrawal address. It also solves the FATF travel rule, and it potentially can give a path to liquidity for Zcash and other anonymity coins that are starting to lose anonymity, liquidity because of compliance issues. You can encrypt the DID and embed it, and then only the exchange can see that. So that address is authenticated, and it could probably fit well in their compliance standard. So a lot of really cool things you can do. Is staking on testnet available on Yoroi? I think there's going to be a Yoroi staking. We've certainly talked to Nico and Sebastian about it. We're going to do multiple updates to the incentivized testnet. Maybe every 4 to 6 weeks, we'll do a major update, so a hard fork and reset it. We'll announce that as we get closer to the test on how we want to do it. If they don't hit us on the first wave, I think they'll certainly hit us for the second wave because they're going to want to test their GUI for staking because they're going to build a staking center into Yoroi for the launch of mainnet, and they kind of need to test it on the testnet before they test it on mainnet. And there's a lot of ADA that lives in Yoroi, and to have to move it back to Daedalus, some users may not want to do that. I still don't understand the focus on Africa. 95% of the Africans are poor. Yeah, and 95% of Americans were poor back in the 19th century. The vast majority of Chinese were poor throughout most of the 20th century. In fact, there was a time when Venezuela was significantly wealthier than China. Think about that. Things change, and you make the real money when you're there first before the things change, but you know they're going to change, and then you scoop them up as they change. Second, who would you rather bet on is going to be your customer? People who live in a society where they're happy with their money and there's pretty strong financial infrastructure, or a society where 70% of the population is at or under the age of 30, they're not happy with their currencies, and they're looking for something new. They're globalized and they're cell phone centric. I would much rather bet on that demographic, especially if that demographic is experiencing 10% GDP growth every year. Did you geo-block U.S. citizens on the ICO? The ICO was done in Japan, Korea, and China, and it was person to person, and passports were collected, and all the marketing was done in Japanese and Korean. This is not EOS. This wasn't a Mickey Mouse thing. It was a very serious deal. People sure as hell criticize it, but in hindsight, it seemed like a pretty fucking good idea. 9,914 people participated. All their names are known. So if you go to cardanohub.org, you can see the audit report that was produced on it, but it's a closed matter, and all those participants doing very, very well. Quite happy. For years, people have been criticizing things, but it's just a lot of recklessness, especially in 2017 we saw. And it's extraordinary to me that people are totally tolerant of that, but then when you do something that has checks and balances and controls and oversight and was done in a slow, methodical, deliberate way, then that's somehow bad. Just let it go, move on, focus on today. How'd the ETC summit go? It was great. A lot of fun. Drank maple syrup from the bottle. Had a Canadian flag wrapped around me. Bob Summerwall was incredibly hospitable. Vancouver is always a lovely city. I truly did enjoy it. Had a lot of fun. It's a good ecosystem, and we hope that we can find something there to do. Charles, how much is the supply of ADA owned by the Japanese? A diminishing amount every day. I mean, initially a large distribution, but IOHK never sold its ADA. So all the ADA trading had to come from Japan. So the stuff that went into Bittrex and Binance is trading there. There are certain people claim that new ADA was issued. It was never the case. This is, again, lies that people tell. There is liquidity. They sell. They sold at a huge profit. And it's entering the global markets every single day. So, it's diminishing. I can't give you the exact amount because the network's been running for 2 years, and who the hell knows? We never kept track of that. You can't keep track of it. It's impossible. How is the community going to vote to renew the IOHK contract if the Cardano governance system is not yet activated? They can't. Therefore, I just keep losing money writing code until that's done. You know what we call that? A financial incentive for Charles Hoskinson to do his job. The other fun thing I just don't understand with the FUDNATO going through our space is people think that we're just sitting on our laurels and relax. Guys, we lose money in the current state of affairs. And I hate losing money. I have a for-profit business. I have 200 employees to take care of. It's not sustainable. So either we do the job or we go out of business. So I'd much rather do the job, right? It's better for me. It's better for my employees. It's better for our company. So we feel the pressure more than anybody else does. And we're just going to keep working until it gets done. There are certain ventures like EOS, for example, that feel no existential pressure because they just simply have billions of dollars at their disposal. And so it's the opposite incentive. The fine they took from the SEC was 2 months interest at 4% on the money that they raised. It's nothing to them. They bought a website address, I think, for $50 million. I mean, it's crazy when you have that kind of capital to deploy. So whether you get the job done today or 10 years from now, what difference does it make? You're flying around in a private jet. You're staying at 5-star hotels. You're living like a god. And no matter how bad you fuck up, there's enough money sitting there that you can just keep playing around. So there's no incentive to produce. There's no incentive to deliver. You do not give a startup that kind of money in the beginning. They get that after they've given the world the iPhone. They get that after they've given the world the Google search engine or Windows. And then, okay, spoils of war, congratulations. You give it to them up front, it's over. You've checked out. It's the I'm vested, I don't care anymore philosophy. So we have very strong incentives to get things done. And it bothers me and eats away at my soul when things don't get done. And I'm usually the first person to yell at somebody, complain, and get unpleasant, hostile, and to try new approaches and new ways of finishing things. It's just these are very difficult protocols. And if you want to actually do something real and innovate, you have to take the time to do it. You have to take the risks and the execution steps to do it. And there is no manual that says this is the way to build it, or else it would have been built before. Why is there no documentation, no code on GitHub, no product presentation on Atala? Well, Bertalan, Atala is an IOHK product, not a Cardano product. And we built it using my money in the funds of IOHK, not Cardano funds. So I have no obligation to the Cardano community to tell you anything about Atala until I do. It's a product that we construct. Now, if we choose to use Atala in tandem with a Cardano deployment to benefit the Cardano ecosystem, that's a business and strategic decision we make. But we will never get into the game that because we work on Cardano, we now have a moral obligation to reveal all the other projects, operations, and products of IOHK. And Atala is one of them. It's an open source project, and at some point we will open up the GitHub repos and we have extensive documentation. It's on Confluence, but we have no reason to do so because we're working intimately with a collection of launch partners. And at some point, we'll probably spin Atala out into an independent company that's a subsidiary of IOHK that does enterprise blockchain contracting for the cryptocurrency space and for governments and large corporations and so forth. But it's a different product entirely. And, there's just no reason to have that discussion at the moment. And there's things you have to do to kind of open these things up. And it's counterproductive to where the product is at in its life cycle. We started Atala about 18 months ago. And it's just getting to the point where we can run pilots. And those pilots will allow us then to understand what's the best way of opening that product up. We also have to have a decision of whether we decide to run that product in a consortium like Hyperledger, or if we go it alone. And there's still some strategic conversations going around. So right now we're in the pilot and capabilities phase, and we're learning as we go. And at some point we will open these things. It's going to be probably under an Apache license or an MIT license, as most of our software is. And anyone is free to use it. And it's an enterprise blockchain, and it's cross-pollinated with things we've learned from Mantis and things we learned from Cardano. It's written in Scala. The team is quite good. It's led by Danel Patel. He's a PhD in computer science. He's the product manager. Noel is the project manager, and Christoph is the lead technical architect. And there's several great developers and business analysts and other people who work with that team, and they're doing wonderful things. But we're a private company. We're not under any obligation to reveal that stuff at the moment, but we will, when the time is right. My primary focus is shipping Shelley at the moment, getting Cardano out the door. Danel is mostly capable of doing his job without oversight. He's a good guy. Cannot elaborate on New Balance, October 14th. Are you a Jew? No. It's amazing. People think I am. I'm not. Any comment to the Dan Larimer post back in 2013, 2014 saying I'm not trustworthy? Dan doesn't like me. I don't like Dan. Okay, we're competitors. We've been competitors since 2014. He also said Ethereum is a toy that will amount to nothing, and it's an interesting science experiment. Where's BitShares? Where's Ethereum? Where's EOS? Where's Ethereum? There are things Dan does I profoundly disagree with, and I'm sure there are things I do he profoundly disagrees with. We worked together for a few months, and that's that. And I have a track record. I've worked with many people in this space throughout the years. People just keep lying. For example, they say, I've been fired from Lisk. I just left. They were paying me to do nothing. I literally didn't do any calls, and I was on the advisor roles. And I said, why am I consuming resources? I'm just going to go leave and you guys do your thing. No harm, no foul. I could have just shut up and collected another 140,000 Lisk. Okay, and then that's transformed to Charles is fired from Lisk. Then they say I left Zencash. I'm still there. I'm still an advisor. After all this time, we still do work with Horizon. Okay. They say I left ETC. I was fired, pushed out from ETC. There's no organization to even fire me from ETC, these idiots. But yet they say it. It's crazy. And just every YouTube comment, all these things, just over and over again, they want to create a narrative. Meanwhile, I've been consistently at the same job since 2015 here at IOHK building things from 2 people to over 200 people. Still here, still going strong, still working on the same fucking project. I mean, longer than Dan's been working on any of his projects. At this point, outside of XRP and Ethereum and a few things, there's not many founders that have been with their cryptocurrency this long. Even Charlie Lee is kind of checked out with Litecoin. Most of the people tend to leave their projects after 2 or 3 years. I'm still at Cardano and will be probably until well beyond 2020, especially if the contract gets renewed. I could be working on this in 2030, for God's sakes. Yet the narrative is I leave immediately. It's craziness. It's just, it's FUD for the sake of FUD, and people who like lying and saying terrible things. You don't get a company with 200 people. You don't deliver consistently. You don't do the things we've done with Cardano and the academic research we've done if you're a flake and you leave every 6 months. You don't do it. It's just not the case. But people like lying. That's what they do. Working since 2015. What did you deliver since 2015, Charles? You're a troll, Abyss. You know damn well what we've delivered. 40 plus scientific papers, probably 1 million lines of code we've written. There is a product in market. It's in the top 20 in CoinMarketCap. You ask any of the other 2,000 cryptocurrencies beneath us if they'd like to switch places with us, they sure as hell would. We got a fan base across the whole world. It's almost Fight Club. In fact, let me tell you this story. I love this story. I was leaving Vancouver, and I was flying Air Canada back, and the guy who was checking me in, I just getting a weird vibe from him, and I was like, what's going on with this guy? You know, he's checking me in, he keeps smiling, and then he takes my bag, does the whole thing, and hands me my ticket, and he leans real close to me, and he says, I love ADA. You know, we've become Fight Club. You know, everywhere I go, I run into people. The waiter at the hotel was a Cardano fan. I met a Border Patrol guy in England who's a Cardano fan. I was in Australia walking down the street and where was it? Brisbane or someplace like that. I can't recall. Canberra. And that was it. And somebody just took a double take, turned around and said, aren't you that Cardano guy? Man, I love Cardano. So we built a global community. We wrote 40 plus scientific papers. We've written massive amounts of code. We are right up there with everybody else. We have reasonable liquidity. We're listed on more than 30 exchanges. People take us seriously. People write about us. There's been people who've raised a lot more money, and there's been people who tried a lot harder, and they haven't accomplished 1/10 of what we've accomplished. And in terms of product launch, by Q1 of 2020, we're basically riding that decentralized train. Very shortly after, we have smart contracts. What have you accomplished? What have you done with your life? What have you contributed? And frankly, who has a strategy beyond 2020? You know, we have a pretty clear vision, and we have a pretty clear way of accomplishing that vision. It may take longer. Okay, great. Things are slow. Talk to Stephen Wolfram about Mathematica as a product and his vision for Wolfram Alpha. He was thinking about Wolfram Alpha and Mathematica back in the 1980s. And he was planning things that they're only now doing today back in the 1980s. It took him that long to get there. It's not about how long it takes to get there. It's about getting there and being relevant and demonstrating that this actually does something for people. And the things we are building today will be around for a very long time. The processes we've set will be around for a very long time. And sure, it takes a long while. There's a lot to think about. And if you screw up, God, massive consequences. People lose money, in some cases, billions of dollars of money. People get disenfranchised. People get hurt. So you have moral obligation with the time and resources you have to do the best job you can do and feel right about it when you go to bed. Not say, oh, well, it sucks to be them. Better luck next time. No, you have to take your job seriously and you have to be passionate about it. And damn it, it's got to be beautiful. You got to build beautiful things that inspire people and they like and they love. So that's what we've accomplished since 2015. We created a global movement, kind of like Fight Club. We're having fun. I guess we have to talk about it because it's cryptocurrency. But that's okay. People don't want to talk about it. And we just keep chugging away. And the science keeps getting better. The code keeps getting better. And we're having fun. Sounds like you're not, though. What happens if not enough people will run stake pools, if not enough people will be interested? We already have almost 100 stake pools running on the non-incentivized testnet. And that's actually why we're doing the incentivized testnet first before releasing it to mainnet, because it teaches you a huge amount about how many people are going to participate and what the rates need to be and blah, 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 and all those little things. If not enough people participate, it's like saying, what happens when there's not enough miners for Bitcoin? The system doesn't work. So if the token price is high, if people take us seriously, they're philosophically aligned with us, they'll support the system. There are cryptocurrencies worth $20 million that people are mining. I don't think we're going to have a participation problem. I think it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be hard to figure out who to work with. And yes, Wolfram is definitely obsessed with cellular autonomy. He wrote a new kind of science, for heaven's sakes. Steve Jobs delivered. Look at the history of Next Computer. Yes, he delivered with Apple, but look at the history of Next Computer in the hinterlands. It took a long time for Steve to find his way. The world was a better place when he did. Will IOHK ever issue equity in IOHK on Cardano? That would be super cool, wouldn't it? I'd like to do that one day. We'll figure it out. I'm a liar here. Our turnover rate at IOHK, Mike, is actually quite low. It's one of the lowest in the entire industry. You'd expect a fairly high turnover rate given the nature of the industry and also just given how unstable things are, but people tend to stay. Multi-party computation on Daedalus. Yeah, you need pub sub and you need a lot of other things to make that work because you have to find people and connect to them. But we'll build an overlay protocol specifically for MPC and pull it into our stack. But it is an interesting network question. Rena is ideally suited for that, actually. Yes, Trance, you will need to reinstall a new version of the Daedalus client, and you'll have to go through an import stage. So it's not going to be super complicated, and the blog post that we release will explain this process with some degree of detail. And before we do it, we'll broadcast a lot of things. We'll do a Cardano effect episode. There'll be a lot of advance notice and things exactly what to do and what the experience is going to look like. But it's pretty simple. You'll just simply download a copy of Daedalus that's been pre-built specifically for the testnet. We'll probably reskin it so it looks cosmetically different as well. and not just saying testnet Daedalus, but it'll say colors will be different and so forth. And then there'll be an import stage, and then immediately after that, you can just have at it and have fun. And it's a reset because it's an airdrop into the incentivized testnet. So the blockchain will be very small. It'll just be a Genesis block, and things will boot almost instantly. So it'll have a very good user experience. It'll be very fast and snappy, and things will be learned along the way. And then we can, of course, send messages to that Daedalus client. So we'll let people know ahead of time when we're planning on updating the incentivized testnet, and also when we plan on taking the incentivized testnet offline and doing the basically distribution back into Cardano. So there's kind of like two parallel threads going during that time phase, and there's stuff happening with the mainnet. And then as we get closer for the convergence, a lot of stuff will be announced on the mainnet side, and a lot of stuff will be announced on the incentivized testnet side. So all of that is being coordinated and managed. We have people like Tatiana and her day jobs to be a release manager, and we have comms people who think about these things, and we're right now figuring out exactly the best way of broadcasting that to as many people as possible. This is also a great participation test to see how many people have just put their ADA into cold storage and don't care about it, or really don't. They have it, but they don't really want to do anything with it for now. And they're just sitting and waiting, versus people are active participants in the ecosystem. So the incentivized testnet will tell us a lot about the liveness of overall ADA on the network and what people can do. And then what we can do based on that information is start targeting our marketing towards certain demographics and communities that maybe need to wake up a little bit and start participating a bit. So it's really nice to have a buffer of time and a nice safe sandbox that gives you that notion. And it also gives us time to talk to exchanges, because exchanges are starting a staking as a service business. We've talked to multiple exchanges that are doing that. And so we're really curious about their business requirements and how they want to run that, what they want to do. So there's a lot to do. But from a user experience perspective, my hope is just install something, import something, probably your keywords. So make sure you have them. And if you don't, create a new wallet, transfer your funds to that wallet that you have it with before the snapshot. And it'll likely just be an import from a keyword, because there's actually a different address structure and everything inside the incentivized testnet. We're using the BEC32 standard, which will be the standard we use for Shelley. Mm-hmm. 31 years old, and thank you, Lithuania. Beautiful country. First rule of Cardano, you do talk about Cardano. Ha 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 ha. That's great. That's a good question. What if ADA is on an exchange? So when we do the snapshot, it doesn't know if it's exchange ADA or Daedalus ADA. So there is an interesting question about, will exchanges allow you to withdraw your testnet ADA into Daedalus so you can use it to stake? And this is a good opportunity for them to build that infrastructure out, or at the very least have a position on it. It's a good opportunity for them also to beta test their staking as a service offerings that they have. But we cannot guarantee an exchange will give you the ability to withdraw your testnet ADA. So the safest thing to do is pull your ADA out of the exchanges. You should never leave it there. But anyway, pull it out before the snapshot occurs. Because if that particular exchange does not support this, your testnet ADA will be locked there and non-participatory. Or perhaps they'll even stake it and keep the funds themselves. Depends on the end user license agreement, where the exchange is located, if that's legal or not. So the safest thing to do is pull the ADA right before the snapshot off the exchange, even if you want to put it back on, and then put it back on. And we'll, of course, discuss out of band with exchanges about what they are going to do. Did I sleep in my clothes? Yeah, I just got back, guys. When will Cardano be fully functional? I keep having problems with Daedalus. See, comments like this are always so difficult because we've done massive upgrades to Daedalus, and we have a help desk. People submit logs. 96%, I think, are satisfied that use it. We get statistics based on feedback. And for the most part, it's a very stable product now that's cross-platform, and it seems to be a stable wallet. It doesn't seem to have any of these problems anymore, like connecting the network and so forth. And then every now and then we get somebody who's saying they're having an issue. And then well, I can't solve your issue over Reddit. I can't solve your issue over live chat. The only way I can solve your issue is report something to the help desk. I spend money out of my own pocket every day to have people there whose day job is to answer your questions and help you get your Daedalus working if it's not working. That wasn't actually even in our support contract. We didn't have that in the economy. We took that duty because the foundation was supposed to do it, and they didn't do it under Parsons. And we said, no, it's good for QA. Let's have you guys have something there. You're still having weird issues, though. That's another reason why there's client diversity, because maybe you have a weird computer, in which case Chrome with Yoroi is a really good option. And I think about 20% of the network is running there. And for the most part, these problems are gone now. But Daedalus is a great product. The code is incredibly high quality. It's been refactored and restructured many times. And for the most part, I'm very happy with Daedalus as of today. I understand historically it's had issues, but it does take time for software to get where it needs to go. Or go look at the Bitcoin QT client in 2009, 2010, 2011. That was hell. The snapshot date, Michael, will be announced in the blog post. It'll be sometime in November. The work done for the Haskell client seems irrelevant in a future date, just like LNK. Then who's responsible for the wastage of time, effort, money? Payment was to build Cardano, so the protocols and actually bring it to market. Didn't specify Haskell or these things. And so if Haskell ends up not being used or it's less relevant, then that means things that would have otherwise been profit have now been expended, and I take a loss on the contract. So I paid. If you have your product, you have your product. But there was certainly a lot learned. And I still do believe in Haskell. I think it's a great approach. What can we as Cardano supporters do for you, Charles? All I want you to do is just use the software. If you want to have criticisms, just make your criticisms fair. And for heaven's sake, have some empathy. This is tough stuff. And we're all here together. We're all trying to accomplish the same things together. I don't make money from delays. I don't make money if the software doesn't work. And I don't relish just sitting around waiting for things. I want to do stuff. I want to build stuff. I want the stuff I build to be useful to you and interesting and actually be meaningful and have an impact. So use it. Every day, use it. And if you have problems, let us know. Go to the help desk, send us logs, these types of things. Go to the Stake Pool Task Force channel, 2,400 people in it. It's growing every day. Do these things. If you do these things, it helps the project along. And then when we launch Goguen, write smart contracts, build things, write dApps, see where that takes you. And then when we launch Voltaire, be an active participant in the governance of the system. That's what you can do to help. Don't have to defend me on Reddit or Twitter. Who cares if people are making nasty videos or saying terrible things on Twitter? I used to have very thin skin because I wasn't used to this stuff, but it's gotten very thick throughout the years. And I just couldn't care less anymore. So you trolls, you're really not having an impact on me anymore. My life is great. Your life is probably not. And there's nothing you can say or do at this point to make my life not great. So either you help us or just leave. Why are you wasting your time? It's an open community. It's permissionless. Come in and do stuff. Yeah, we need to improve the documentation. I fully agree that there need to be some improvements there. You have to understand that there's significantly better documentation on the Haskell side, but it's not at that state. So the Rust side was running with different processes where it was very code centric and just get it out. And the documentation is kind of free flowing because design decisions are being changed all the time. So the documentation will definitely improve. In fact, probably after the incentivized testnet is launched, there'll be a sprint specifically focused to improving, cleaning up the documentation on that side. We're bringing in a few more people to do nothing but start worrying about those things. But it's definitely a deficit there, and you can't have everything. So you take the good with the bad, and it's a high priority and a little bit. Is Libra a danger to crypto? Well, I said to Mark Zuckerberg, I said, run, honey man, run. And he seems to be running. That bear is chasing him. He's not as fast as he needs to be. They keep losing people. I think PayPal just pulled out. It's a lot harder to build a cryptocurrency in the ecosystem than you think. It really is. Thousands and thousands of ventures have tried. I remember Hashgraph running around. We're the future. We're the future. We're so awesome. We're so awesome. They launch it. They go from 36 cents to like 3 cents. And then all of a sudden they just get this tsunami wave of bad press. They're good guys. They're not bad people. It's a lot harder to launch a cryptocurrency, even if you plan and you have good, meticulous people behind you. Look at Sylvia McCauley with Algorand. Great people, great human being, great engineers, good ideas, legitimate project. And it's still not right, really needs to be, right? There's a lot more to do. It's hard to launch a crypto. And if you're Facebook, it's 10 times harder because you have this gargantuan spotlight on you and everybody's going to try to kill you. The US government doesn't come after me. We're pretty chill. But if you're Facebook, they have to because you're competing with the dollar. Do you think the Fed will digitize the dollar officially? Yes, within the next 5 or 10 years, it'll happen. POS on phone apps. You can do POS with phone if you want to leave it on for when your slot comes up. It's pretty cool. These are very powerful computers. Actually, if you look at the collaboration between Microsoft and Qualcomm to build the SQ1 processor for the recent announcement for the Microsoft Surface Pro 10, that's a really, 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 really good example of where the world is going. A cell phone processor is now so powerful it can power a laptop and compete with top-of-the-line Intel processors and still only consume 7 watts of power and have an all-day battery life. So your cell phone is a supercomputer, and it is and can be infrastructure for cryptocurrency. And proof of stake is all about having that infrastructure. So yes, hopefully you can stake from a phone one day. Do you see need for secret smart contracts like Enigma is trying to build? Not like Enigma, but like Kachina. We just published a paper for that. Shipping. Shipping soon. And no, I'm not making fun of Hashgraph from going from 32 to 3. My point was it's hard to do this, and they're suddenly experiencing the same problems we have. Despite all the years of preparation and brilliance and the great team, you still get hammered. It's a difficult space. It's super competitive, and there are things you just cannot imagine. You have to think about. What do I think about the new foldable devices in market? Yeah, that's a good question. The new Microsoft Neo, and then the Samsung phone, where if you took the screen cover off, it destroyed the phone. I was like, what are you doing? This is not a real product. Stop it, people. You hurt me. It was almost like Grendel in Beowulf. It was like, it hurts me. It hurts me. No. Yeah, God. Some of these products are pretty crazy. I mean, in principle, the idea of having two screens is interesting. It's like it's a tablet when you want it. It's a phone when you're not. But the problem is it's really thick when it's folded. So it's too thick to be a phone when it's in phone mode. And when you fold it out to make it a tablet, it's a mini tablet, and you can't really do too much with it. The Neo is interesting, the one with the keyboard that Microsoft is doing. Maybe that'll have more utility. I don't know. It just seems like it's not a product yet, but who knows? When the iPad first came out, I said, I don't know if that's going to be a real thing or not. And tablets became a huge category. So I've been wrong before, but I don't think foldable phones are a big deal yet. Yeah, I've seen the Chico videos about me. I don't watch them anymore. In fact, the most recent one I didn't even look at. Couldn't care less. You know, in life, there are going to be people that say horrible things about you. I mean, pick your favorite hated politician. Let's say Obama, for example. You know, not an Obama fan or not against Obama, just as an example. People made movies about how he's not born in the United States or how he's part of a communist conspiracy to destroy the country. And look at what CNN is saying about Trump. And so no matter where your politics fall, no matter what you're trying to accomplish, there's plenty of people out there just going to say horrible things about you. For example, when Steve Jobs retook Apple in 1997, the tech media was not impressed. A lot of people said he's a has-been, he's too hard to work with, he'll kill the company in a year. This is the worst decision that Apple could have made. And the very same people who wrote those articles wrote in his obituary that he was the Edison of his time and the greatest business mind of the 21st and 20th century. Haters gonna hate, you know, and this guy is just one of them. And once we deliver and all the things that are on our roadmap, then he'll find something else to make videos about. Maybe it's us, maybe it's someone else. I won't get an apology. I won't get a "you're right, I was wrong" video. No, it'll just be, "Oh no, I was right. You just got lucky." You know, this is just, that's how his business model. It's shock jock. You know, make stuff, get people to fanboy on it. Anybody who doesn't like me or doesn't like the project, they point to it, say that's proof. Just because you believe it doesn't make it true. You know, and so you can't let these things bother you, and you can't really pay too much attention to them. Instead, what you do is you follow the Paul Halmos way of doing it. You tell people what you're going to do, you do it, and you tell them what you did. That's it. So we said this is Cardano: scalability, interoperability, sustainability. And it's going to be based on science. Here's a stack of papers. I think Rick and Philippe printed them out. It's like this thick now of scientific papers. And we went and wrote a lot of code. And now we're launching the code. And you're going to use the code. And then we'll talk about the code that we shipped and whether it was good or bad and whether it did the job or not. And then we'll figure it out from there. But that's what we signed up for. I spent 5 years doing this. And it's been a long road and a lot of work. We've accomplished a huge amount. And we got to a point where it went from could we even do it to it's an inevitability and an certainty. It might take a little longer, but it doesn't mean we're not going to show up for work every day. So there's plenty of people in life that's not good enough for them. There's got to be a scandal. There's got to be a controversy. It's like the Trump impeachment. Even if he's impeached, he won't be removed from office because there's too many Republican senators. They have no political reality where they're going to vote against him. So we're going to go through 6 months and a year of nonsense and noise and tell-alls and leaked text messages so that the outcome can be nothing is accomplished. The Miller Report is another example of that. 18 months of this noise. Saturday Night Live having Robert De Niro run out and say, "Oh, you know, Trump's going to jail and very soon." And then the report comes out. And then if you're left, it's the most damning thing ever. If you're right, it's vindication. And life goes on. We move forward. Meanwhile, and all the resources and time and noise we didn't do much to address our national debt. We didn't do much to address the healthcare problems. We didn't do much to address these endless wars that never seem to stop. We didn't do much to actually make America greater. We just let the problems that we refuse to talk about get worse and worse and worse. And I put those types of things in the same category. If he has a better idea about how we should achieve decentralization, or how we should build better protocols, or get more people in more productive ways into our ecosystem to actually carry out the vision of these systems, great. But if all it is attacking people for the sake of attacking for ratings to make money, then it's no better than any other demagogue and no better than any other agent provocateur. And there's certainly been many of them throughout history. History doesn't remember those people, but they do remember the people that changed the world. And I'd rather be in the latter than the former. The peer-to-peer Poldercast implementation was quite an achievement. Oh, but there's more. We actually talked to Spiros, the author of the Poldercast paper, and we're right now negotiating Poldercast 2, Wrath of Poldercast, basically to fix some issues that we discovered along the way. We also have very extensive network documentation on the Haskell side. It's about 100 plus pages of that, and we'll eventually release that at some point. We wrote, it's kind of a retrospective on what we've built. So there's a lot of really good ideas on the networking side, and we're kind of taking ideas from different people like Pramod Viswani and the Barracuda ideas for accelerating proof of stake, Poldercast for kind of a decentralized pub sub, and then what we've learned on these kind of self-tuning peer-to-peer networks with the Haskell side that also are non-blocking. So there's some really cool innovations that are there, and they're kind of still scattered a little bit. One of the big colossal project challenges will be pulling all of them to one cohesive networking vision. The challenge is that we don't have just one network. We have networks in many different ways. We have what will be required for Hydra, what's required for the MPC, we have what's required for the stake pools, and then the general peer-to-peer layer, and then kind of ways to accelerate the peer-to-peer layer, and then the relay nodes as well, and then the light clients and how they do things. So there's all these different actors and these different personas kind of have different network needs and different assumptions about the network. So it's been difficult reconciling all of them because there's no canonical way of doing this. I wish there was some standard protocol that we can just pull and say, this is it for everything. I mean, you can look at things like, gRPC and secured Kademlia and so forth as a reference point, but even then you have to kind of modify them a little bit for it. So I was quite happy to see Poldercast come out, and I think we're the first people to actually implement that. It's a 2012 paper. Hello from Belgium. How was the Wyoming hackathon? That's a good question. It was great. We were so excited to see these people. They even brought a bus of high school students down from, it was up northeast part of the state. I don't remember which county, but it was a very small place. I think it's like a class size of 50, but it was really exciting to see all the different people there. And I ran into some old friends too. Trace Mayer was there. And then also Jesse Powell from Kraken was there. Caitlin Long was there. And, it's always great to talk to these old school people. Like Trace, for example, built one of my favorite wallets from back in the day, Armory. And if you're a student of Bitcoin history, you might remember that one. But it's just cool to see the progress. They're actually trying to pass a law right now in Wyoming that will make it illegal for the government to force you to turn over your private keys. So a court would not be able to order you to turn over your private keys. How about that? That is a crypto-friendly place, man. And they play hardball with these laws. Like they were repealing the entire Money Service Business Act, the Money Transmitter Act, in exchange for getting the regulators in the state to play ball. It's like, if you work with us on this, we'll just fire all of you and remove the law altogether, and money transmission will be completely unregulated in this state. So I love Wyoming. I love the attitude. I love the gusto. I love the balls these guys have, and I just love how quickly they're moving. And it turned out they made some mistakes in the legislation they had last year, and they actually fixed them. The community said, "Hey, these are problematic," and they said, "Oh, that's a good point. Let's fix that." So that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. So it was a lot of fun to go to the hackathon. A lot of people wrote a lot of Plutus code. They wrote some Marlowe code. We got some good feedback. It was fun to hang out with Jim Caldwell. He's department chair of the computer science department there. I went to Cornell. He's an interesting guy. And UI is just a great university. It's not too far away. Well, Neil, because he makes money. If I go on his show, he makes money. That's what he wants. Is go do that, get a controversy, and then somebody shows up to address the controversy. Ratings go through the roof. Will the YouTube profits be shared with me? And then what are you doing? You're incentivizing people to repeat that behavior. The best thing you can do is what The Simpsons did when they had that Treehouse of Horror episode, and it was when all of the advertisements came alive and started killing people. They played the song, "Just Don't Look, Just Don't Look, do, 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 do." And that's what we're going to do. And he'll go away unless Homer keeps staring at the donut. Do you think Andrew Yang will be a crypto-friendly president? Andrew Yang will not be president. The Democrats have lost their minds. They're going to nominate a crazy person who will lose, and Trump will win. Makes me really sad that we have to keep dealing with this. But I'm sorry, you can't field a candidate that says publicly we should have 70% tax rates and steal 4% of my money every year, regardless if I make money or not. You just cannot do that. It's immoral. It's wrong. You can't have people say we should spend $50 trillion on crazy infrastructure because reasons. They're not offering solutions. They're offering class warfare for the sake of power. And America's too smart for that. At least Andrew's honest. He just says, "I'll just give you free money. Here's $1,000 every month. Good luck, everybody." Wim Hof Arctic soon. We've already begun the ice training. Brian McKenna, one of our product managers who's working on a super secret product that we'll announce at some point. He's been jumping into the Irish Sea. I'd like to believe that he's doing it naked, but anyway, he's taking this very seriously. Ice baths, cold showers, jumping into the sea in the early mornings. He's a scrappy guy. We like Bri, and he's getting ready. Jer Maroney is the other guy who's going with me, and we got to get him to start training. I'm a little tardy myself, but Wim Hof is Wim Hof. You just call him up and say, "Wim, we got to go to Antarctica," and he's like, "Cool, let's do it." And so we got to figure that out. For those of you who don't know this story, I'm planning on going down to Mount Terror. It's a mountain in Antarctica, and we're going to go climb it shirtless in probably close to the winter, as close as we can get and still be in Antarctica. And with the Iceman, a guy named Wim Hof, he has all the ice endurance records, and then paramotor from the mountain down to base camp. So we'll definitely tweet that. And there'll be 4 people there: Jer Maroney, Brian McKenna, Wim Hof, and myself. We'll do 2 paramotors tandem. I do crazy stuff like that. Ever come to California anytime soon? I just might go to the People's Republic of California. You never know. All right, let's get one more question. How is the situation in Hong Kong affecting the organization? Not at all. Or Wyoming. Yay. Kind of saw that writing on the wall there. Are you also going to drink that whiskey? Yes. If we succeed the Mount Terror escapade and don't die, we will get a bottle of Macallan 30, and we'll down that sucker. That's a celebration for a crazy, crazy thing. You got to have goals in life. Give me a good question to end on, kids. Hibiki 21. Yeah, Hibiki is good whiskey. If the Rust code Gabriel touches mainnet, it'll go through a security audit prior to that. Are you in the Illuminati? Well, I do have the Illuminati mask behind there. Now, Adam Weishaupt died, guys. He started the Illuminati in 1776, Bavaria. And it was an outcrop, actually, of the Jesuits. And then when the Illuminati got stamped, the members went back into the Jesuit order, and then the Jesuits reformed other Illuminati branches. They're still around. Doing their Illuminati stuff. Putting Cardano nodes in space. If we get back to dollar ADA, we probably will. Hi from South Korea. Hi, hi, hi. Charles, please smoke a victory cigar on live stream when Shelley is released on mainnet. The trolls will be beside themselves. You know, I might actually buy a Lamborghini tractor and drive it the day we launch Shelley mainnet and smoking a cigar. I might actually do that. That'd be great. They say, when Lambo? Now Lambo. Hail Hydra. Yes, we actually have a product manager for the Hydra team, for Ouroboros Hydra. We just put them on because the paper's almost done. And now we need somebody to roll up everything and build a prototype so we can get it ready for next year. And it's Rob Cohen is the name of is the guy who's running that product. And all of our email headers going back and forth about Hydra, and the subject is Hail Hydra. We're having way too much fun with that name. Dun, dun. All right. Well, nothing really that interesting. So I guess we'll just clip it here. All right. Well, thanks, guys, for listening to the AMA. We laughed, we cried, we were happy, we were sad, angry, all emotions. And despite all of it, I love all of you. I have so much fun doing these things. I really do enjoy them, especially on Sunday afternoons. It's a good way to spend some time. And this really is the best community. So a lot of good things coming. Just to recap, blog post coming soon. Stake Pool channel on Telegram. Keep using that. We're going to try to make it more and more useful over time. The Incentivized testnet coming soon. We're working towards it. If you find some bugs or issues, go ahead and use the get issues on the Jormungandr repo. A lot of stuff on the Haskell side coming soon too. So they're going to have some fun in the market because they want to play. And the road to Shelley's begun. The march to Shelley's begun. I look forward to seeing how many people are actually staking. I look forward to seeing how many registered pools there are. There's going to be a lot of documentation improvements, and the drum is beating hard, and everything's starting to pull together. And it's just beautiful to see that. So thanks for sticking with it. And until next time, in Boca al Lupo.